I like to be overbearing. Since college, I have constantly been involved in some conflicts and disputes. I like to defend my position and point of view. This gave me the confidence and cunning to achieve my goals. But I never thought that my skills would be useful to me when divorcing my unfaithful wife. My name is Stephen. Kathleen is my wife with whom we have been together for 15 years. During this time, we had 2 children, a 7-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl. I consider myself an overbearing and strict man, but this is with strangers. For my family, I am white and fluffy. And I can raise my voice in rare cases and do it solely for educational purposes. I have a well-shaped and toned body. I regularly go to the gym to keep fit. I like it. My wife, Kathleen, is a petite brunette with brown eyes. She also regularly looks after herself. She has a toned ass, gorgeous breasts, and an equally delicate and smooth body. Kathleen was afraid that with the birth of children she would lose her slimness, but I think she only got better, and I don't know if it's good or not because of her defiant appearance, some guys are constantly hitting on her, which get on my nerves. I've lashed out at Kathleen a few times upon discovering she was interacting with someone. I am extremely jealous and don't know what to do about it. If a man stands next to my wife for more than a minute, I literally start shaking. It's not that I don't trust Kathleen. It's just my nature. Years went by, and I continued to struggle with the inner beast of anger, trying to tame it. I can't say I've completely succeeded, but I haven't given up. During our 15 years together, Kathleen only encountered my bouts of jealousy a few times. She knew what I was capable of, and this knowledge came in handy when some brash individuals tried to make her dance on the dance floor in my absence, while we were relaxing with friends, and I was supposed to arrive later. Despite her refusals, they acted aggressively and even pulled her onto the dance floor, just as I returned to the club with a friend. "Did you really think you could get away with this insolence?" I asked one of them during the first incident. My intervention was immediate. I defended Kathleen, showing that guy his place before he could make another move on the dance floor. I hit him hard on the head, and he realized that joking with me was a bad idea. After that, Kathleen and I decided to leave, and I realized I tolerate no disrespect. This incident made me wonder why Kathleen allowed it to happen. Despite my suspicions, she said she couldn't do anything and that the guys were forcing her, but I believed her, and my feelings for her remained unchanged. Recently, many unusual changes have occurred in our life. With the arrival of a new boss at Kathleen's office, her appearance noticeably changed, and our intimate life suddenly improved. Kathleen began to spend more time on her phone, constantly texting someone, claiming she was communicating with friends. She also started having important business meetings, mostly in the evenings, and all these factors began to ignite a strong feeling of jealousy in me. I couldn't control my jealousy, but I also understood that confronting them directly was a foolish idea, so I resorted to a more cunning way of finding out the truth. Could all this be my baseless suspicions? I wondered, turning to a private detective. I asked him to keep me informed only after the investigation was concluded. 3 months later, I received a report that confirmed my worst fears. My heart sank as I reviewed the video, audio, and photographic evidence, after which I immediately contacted a lawyer. "William, it's time to start the process," I said with a heavy heart, initiating a new chapter in our life. I had to prepare the divorce papers by Wednesday before noon. My plan was to surprise them at a meeting on Thursday evening, while they thought I was out of town. I had special plans for this couple, and I was astonished that Kathleen could even assume I would let this slide. Kathleen knew me better than anyone else, recognizing my intuition, determination, and ability to be relentless. She saw how I ruthlessly took charge of the company and confidently dealt with competitors. Now, controlling a major transportation company and earning respect among drivers, whom I always treated fairly, I was confident in their support. I provided Kathleen with everything she needed and treated her like royalty, which she was well aware of, telling all her friends and relatives about my care. Nonetheless, the question remained, why did she risk everything for a fleeting affair with her boss? My wife seemed to think I was on a business trip, based on her conversation with her boss about being available that evening. Thanks to software from the private detective agency, I could monitor her messages and calls, confirming my suspicions, and I found out which restaurant and what time their romantic date was scheduled. My determination and sense of betrayal only intensified after seeing how she behaved and realizing her boss's audacity. My plan was clear: to wait until they let their guard down and then suddenly appear with the divorce papers. I knew Kathleen would not want a divorce, loving me and our children, but I also understood that my actions would forever change her life. At that moment, I was full of determination. All I dreamed of was to make her feel at least a fraction of the pain she had caused me. Certainly, some could reasonably argue for forgiveness and letting go of grievances, especially considering our children throughout our 15-year marriage. But I noticed that my jealousy and alpha male instincts wouldn't allow me to just let go of the situation. I categorically refused to tolerate another man being close to my wife, aiming to keep her as a loyal partner. Despite all my love for her and the pain I was going through, I realized that I could never again see or touch her the same way as before. In standby mode, I watched and waited for the signal to know when to act. So on one Thursday evening, I received a sign. They sat in a restaurant and ordered drinks. I was ready. Exiting the car and entering the restaurant, I exchanged smiles with the hostess and, holding back my anger, began to act according to plan. My wife was sitting at the table in a provocative cocktail dress that accentuated her cleavage, and it was driving me crazy, especially because she never wore such a thing for me. I was confused and upset by her behavior. Why did she do this? It was madness. It seemed like she wanted to look seductive for her companion, which only intensified my anger. Approaching their table, I noticed how they were engrossed in each other, creating an adorably cute scene. Only when I pulled out a chair to sit at their table did they notice me. Kathleen's gaze was clouded with a mix of fear and guilt, something I had not noticed before. I, her spouse, found myself in an unfamiliar situation, while her boss just looked at me with dissatisfaction, apparently not realizing who I was. I started cheerfully. "Hello, Kathleen. How's your date going?" I asked with a smile, adding, "And what brings you here? Thought you wouldn't be around." She hesitated, trying to find the right words, and began. "Richard invited me to dinner to talk about changes in the organization. Join us," she responded softly, not losing her politeness. Quickly gathering herself, she stood up just as my order arrived. Ignoring her words, I proposed a toast. "Let's drink to an exciting evening." Then I turned to Richard. "You know, Richard, our marriage is built on honesty and trust. Are you married?" "Yes, Stephen. I've been married for 20 years, and I highly value my marriage." "I agree with you that honesty and trust are the foundation of any marriage," he said without a hint of doubt. Kathleen confirmed that trust and honesty are key to our happiness, despite the clearly business nature of the meeting. "You see, Richard, our marriage is strong," I said, showing care for Kathleen and her fidelity. Clearly annoyed, they tried to restore a professional atmosphere. "How long have you been seeing each other?" I asked, keeping my smile. Kathleen tried to take control of the situation, assuring that it was purely a business meeting. Her colleague supported her, affirming the professional boundaries of the meeting and apologizing for any possible misunderstanding. The way they tried to justify their meeting amused me immensely. In the softly lit shadow of the restaurant, I began with an apology, trying to soften my voice. "I apologize, but it seemed to me you've never invited my wife on dates, right? This is just a business meeting, as you said, Richard. There's really nothing going on between you." Richard nodded, assuring me that the meeting with Kathleen was strictly professional. "Yes, that's true," he confirmed. "There's nothing between us but work." And I wanted to hit him right there in the restaurant, but I restrained myself. My heart was filled with doubts, but I decided to ask the question that could clarify everything. Kathleen hurried to reassure me. "Darling, it's really just work matters. I would never give in to the advances of another, especially with my boss. Don't be so jealous." Her words seemed sincere, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of jealousy, looking at her in a glittering dress next to an attractive man. "Do you understand why I might feel this way?" I tried to explain, as Richard friendly patted Kathleen on the back, seemingly trying to comfort her. Just for him touching my wife, I felt entitled to break his finger. Suddenly, the atmosphere of our conversation changed when I signaled a stranger at the bar. Approaching our table, he handed me a folder with photos and then quickly disappeared. Spreading the photos on the table, I turned to Kathleen with sadness in my voice. "Kathleen, I have always loved you with all my heart. But now, with these proofs before me, my heart is broken," I said with a hint of sarcasm. Kathleen froze, seeing the photos, her eyes widening in horror. Richard started demanding explanations, but I simply asked him to be quiet. Flipping through the photos, I couldn't resist making ironic remarks. "See, Kathleen, you look so beautiful." And Richard, it seems, is utterly thrilled. "I think this is the most successful photo. It shows your faces and how you enjoy the process. Richard, I see you are incredibly fond of my wife, aren't you?" Thus unfolded this dramatic scene, revealing the secret connections and passions hidden behind the mask of business relations. In the restaurant, the atmosphere became tense to the limit. Kathleen could no longer hold back her tears and desperately begged me to stop, noting that the attention of those around was focused on our table. I tried to speak softer, not to attract unnecessary attention in such a public place, feeling uncomfortable myself that all this had to be discussed in such an atmosphere. "You understand what this looks like, right? There's only one way out of this situation," she said, swallowing her tears. I looked at her with mild surprise and calmly replied, "So you're planning to keep lying? But let me show you something." I laid out the evidence of my words on the table. Hours of video recordings, text messages, emails, and photographs. "I never thought you were capable of this. It hurts, and I spent a tremendous amount of resources to gather all this. Legally," I continued, looking her straight in the eye. "Tonight it all ends. These are the divorce papers," I said, handing her the documents. "Your affair with another has destroyed our marriage and killed my love for you. You have caused me a pain that I cannot forgive. If you don't sign these papers today, everyone will know the truth. Our children deserve to know who their mother really is," I said firmly, knowing the decision was made. Kathleen, tears rolling down her cheeks, and her lover seemed bewildered. She tried to plead with me, offering typical excuses, but I was unyielding. "Stephen, I love you. Please give me another chance," she finished. "I'll be back," I said, getting up from the table. "When I return, these papers need to be signed. Otherwise, I promise, you can't even imagine the chaos I can bring into your life." That day, as I left, leaving Kathleen in tears and her heart in ruins, it was clear to me that Richard was ready to do anything to extract her signature. He wanted to save himself at any cost while I was away. The speed of his actions was astonishing. He realized that neither his wife nor his job should see those documents. The threat of a public expose through video hung over him, and he was resolute in his determination to avoid it. His plan? To persuade Kathleen to sign the divorce papers, and that was all I needed. When I returned, they were sitting and talking heatedly. "Kathleen, just sign them now, and I promise you that I'll make it so you can be together." "That's it," he began his persuasion. "I'll give you a chance to talk to him, to convince him of your love, to suggest going to therapy. Just make him wait. Say that it's the least he can do after 15 years of marriage over one mistake. This is our best shot." I felt he was sincere. After all, if he had those videos and audio recordings, it would have been bad for both of us. "I don't want a divorce," Kathleen said between tears. "Believe me, this needs to be done. Think about the children. You don't want to lose them, do you?" Her lover continued to persuade her. Her tears emerged again, and I, after a short contemplation, approached the table. "So, did you sign the papers?" I asked with sadness in my voice. She met my gaze and whispered, "Darling, I'll do anything you ask, including signing those documents. But please give me a week before making any final decisions. Can you let me go home? Give me this week after 15 years of being together? Can I spend it with our children?" I paused for a moment, weighing her request. In the end, my heart softened. Though you deserve my anger for what you've done, I'll give you a chance. You'll stay in the guest bedroom. I can't let you sleep next to me. But sign the documents so I can leave." She sorrowfully signed her name, and I placed the documents in a folder. Standing up, I was ready to leave, but before doing so, I took her hand. She smiled briefly before realizing I was removing her wedding rings and leaving mine on the table, carelessly tossing it into her glass of wine. Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't hide a smile, seeing her begin to understand my pain. Turning to Richard, I said, "Now she's yours. Do as you wish. But remember, Richard, you intruded into my family, broke our marriage, and risked a lot. Your fate is now in my hands. Don't dare to mess with me. You're very lucky I didn't follow through with my initial plans. This is not the end." Richard nodded silently as I stood over him, evidently submissive. He was in my hands, and I relished that I could manipulate him as I pleased, yet I chose not to stray from my initial self-image. I wonder if they still have a desire for sex after I leave. I was about to leave when suddenly Kathleen grabbed my hand. She pleaded with me, asking if she could come home with me. "I just want to be near you, please," she begged. I jerked my hand away as if it burned me and coldly replied, "Forget it. I don't want to be seen in your company. You're at a business meeting today. Let's meet after you finish your affairs. Be it tonight or tomorrow. I don't care. You have a week, you disgust me, and I'm ashamed to have ever been your husband. Yes, I made a mistake, but frankly, I don't care. I kept my emotions under control and took pride in being able to contain my anger like a real man because no matter how menacing a man might appear, he must remain human. Gave her a week. Let's see what happens next." The next morning, after she came home an hour after our conversation, Kathleen seemed to realize that I was not in the mood for a calm dialogue and went to the guest room. When we met in the kitchen, still thirsting for revenge, I continued in the same vein. "Good morning. How is my unfaithful wife today? You don't mind if I call you that now, do you?" I asked with irony. She flinched, and looking down at her coffee, she uttered the standard words for such situations, saying, "We need to talk." But I was adamant. "Kathleen, I know all about your affairs, how you deceived me and said all sorts of things about me and our marriage to him. I saw how you tried to impress him, while you never gave me such attention." Crying, she tried to explain, saying she never intended to hurt me. But I replied, "The problem isn't infidelity, Kathleen. The problem is that you chose this and tried to hide it by continuing to lie. It disgusts me to think about how many others there might have been like him. How could you lie and come back to me pretending nothing happened?" Kathleen talked about love. But what does love have to do with it when trust is shattered? I loved you, Kathleen, but the trust is gone. The question is, did I ever really know you? I concluded. With my voice saturated with emotions, I opened up to her, and in her tears, I saw the realization of the depth of my feelings and the horror of her actions. No apologies, only an admission of guilt. "It's all right, I understand that, and I'm disgusted with myself," she confessed, admitting her sole guilt. "I don't think you can forgive me, but I don't want us to part. I'm ready to do anything to keep us together. I need professional help, and perhaps together we can work through my issues. Please stay with me." I pondered before responding. "Kathleen, you can always seek support. I'll be there, but I can't continue a relationship with someone who was so easily ready to reject me. Your actions have shown me your true feelings, and I don't see a future for us together. Others will find happiness with me. You've missed your chance. Spend a week with our kids. Think about how you'll explain your departure. I will maintain dignity and not slander you before them, but be honest about the reasons for the separation. They will stay with me if your behavior is unworthy. I will ensure you have access to the children, but if your behavior does not change, I will have to limit the meetings. I have 2 questions for you. Why did you decide to risk everything? Was it worth it?" I asked unexpectedly, but Kathleen began to cry and went into the living room. I decided not to bother her anymore today. I had an important meeting. Then I contacted Richard to discuss the consequences of his actions. At lunch, I offered him a plan to financially support Kathleen for the next couple of years as a form of compensation. "This is the least you can do," I said, detailing the plan. "If you don't follow through, you'll lose your job and your wife will find out about everything." Despite my disappointment in Kathleen, I still cared about her and wanted to make sure she would be okay. "You must take responsibility for your actions," I concluded the conversation with Richard, emphasizing the importance of the consequences of his actions. Richard made payments every month, not forgetting my warning, I began, recalling our conversations. And Kathleen, she tried to explain her actions, admitting that she had deceived me and that it was in vain. She regretted it, but could not understand why she had done it. Now she was alone, having lost the love that was once hers. I could have completely destroyed her life, but the loss of family and my love seemed punishment enough. She sought answers but could not explain her actions, only saying, "I don't know why it happened." She claimed it was not related to our relationship, that she loved me and was happy with our life together. But something new and exciting prompted her to cheat. "Kathleen, if you were happy, why did you choose such provocative outfits for him? Things you never did for me. Perhaps if you had put as much effort into our relationship, we would not be in this situation. Your actions and words, it just happened. Do not give me answers. You say you love me, but your actions suggest otherwise. I hope one day you can explain this to me sincerely." After the divorce, the children stayed with me, and I, along with my ex-wife's lover, helped her get back on her feet. I did not want her to hit rock bottom because I understood that everyone makes mistakes, but it's always important to understand that every action has consequences, which can be far more destructive. I'm glad I was able to not give in to emotions and make the right decisions.
That's the end of the story. Do you think the main character did the right thing? That he did not go into direct confrontation and decided everything in a more peaceful way? Why did the main character's wife decide to cheat on him? Is the main character to blame for this? Why didn't the main character ruin the life of his wife's lover? Write your opinion in the comments. It will be interesting for us to read it. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and put likes so as not to miss new, equally interesting and exciting stories. Good luck.